Hi, friends. This is Reflections for Pentecost. So it's hard to believe that we have approached the 50th day of Easter. Let that sink in. And in that 50th day of Easter, for the past 50 days, we have celebrated new life. And for a lot of us, too, we've seen the tulips blooming. We've seen new life breathed into everything, like nature. And some of us have seen priestly ordinations, people brought into the church, people coming back to the church for the first time since God knows when. You see, friends, the church, the Pentecost, which originates for 50, it is when the church is the birth of the church. Now, to understand is that we look at in Acts of the Apostles of how all the apostles were in the upper room and they were praying. And of course, the Holy Spirit descended upon them. Now, what we look here is that they were given a commission, a special task. For 3 years, Jesus was training them, to prepare to go out into the world and preach his gospel. And many of them ultimately were going to do just that and lay down their lives for it. I always remember talking to some veterans, and they always tell me the worst days of their life was basic training. I always thought at first, maybe it was like when you're serving in war or something like that. But for them, it was basic training because what happens? You have like hundreds of recruits here that want to be part of one of the best military branches of the world. And what happens here is that sometimes, like, there were people that would quit. They would have to leave because of injury, like conduct, whatever the case is. But here for the apostles, they've been hanging around Jesus for 3 years. They were being trained by him. Like, this is what you need to do. But if you go back 10 days before Pentecost, like, all systems were ready to go. It was just a matter of time. All it took was the Holy Spirit to descend upon them. And of course, the Holy Spirit is going to guide them in how to spread the gospel in the native language. And it didn't matter because Catholic is universal. And every Catholic is part of something bigger. It doesn't matter if you go to TLM, if you're an opie-dopey, if you go to ordinary form, or whatever. We're all Catholic. But what sets one Catholic apart from another is the Catholic that is willing to live out their faith and not just provide lip service. And I think the problem with the Catholic Church today is that it's embracing the Church of Nice. And we have to understand one thing, and that is there is no such thing as nice anymore. We cannot confuse charity with cowardice, as Harrison Bucker talked about in his recent speech at Benedictine College, which has been it's been the biggest talk of the town, which I'll get to that. I'll get back to that in a minute. Gilbert Keith Chesterton reminds us that the Catholic Church didn't move with the world, but it moved the world. For three millennia, ladies and gentlemen, what we see here is that the Catholic Church has moved the world despite all the changes. And there's no question about it with all the attacks that are happening, whether it be radical jihad or hardcore atheism, communism, socialism, the Catholic Church will stand strong. In order for that to happen, is men and women need to embrace their true vocations. Priests must be priests. Bishops must be bishops. They got to stop, obtaining popularity. They have to learn that they have to preach about things that are uncomfortable from the pulpit. Now, some of you are going to say, yeah, you're making references to like Harrison Bucker's speech from Benedictine College. Well, what do you expect? What do you expect, really? Because he talked about things that have to be told. And that's the problem with the clergy today. The apostles in 33 AD, they weren't afraid. They laid down their lives. 11 out of 12. And then many of their disciples paid the price as well. So can you. Now, those of us here that are offended by Bucker's speech, I wonder, what did he say that offended you? But at the same time, I'd like to know one thing. What are you doing? Like, what are you doing with your own life? Seriously, what are you? And for those of you that say you're Catholic, but you don't uphold the teachings or whatever, what are you doing? What is your plan to preach the gospel, or at least make disciples for the whole nation? How do you plan to be filled with the Holy Spirit today, friends? That is the question we must ponder as we celebrate the final day of the Easter season. We can still live this out, by the way, through ordinary time. Never forget that. Receive the Holy Spirit and share with others. Never forget the fact that when you were baptized in the Catholic faith, you were given a vocation. It is time for you to live out the first Pentecost that happened in the first century now. No excuses. Happy Easter. God bless.